everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Thursday to those of you guys who are watching. Welcome back. I hope you guys are doing well. This is going to be my interpretation of the incoming full moon in Virgo. I'm titling this video Deja Vu. If you guys like my content and you want to see more of it, please make sure you click the bell button below. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that way you're alerted as to when we have new astrology content on my channel. We're here 4 days a week giving you guys the news with what's going on in the cosmos, tarot, astrology, Sabian symbols, and much, much more. And also, please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Any interaction, like a comment or a thumbs up, really helps the channel grow. So I appreciate you guys so much. If you want to support me as a full-time content creator, consider joining me for one of my lives on Friday nights. I'm always here at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, doing live readings. Also, I have memberships on my channel, so if that's something that you would like to donate to, if you'd like to become a member, check out my community tab, check out my membership tab, and see what we've got going on so you can support me as a content creator. All right, so full moon in Virgo coming in hot. We won't be seeing this until February 24th, 2024. But this is quite an impactful period of time. The end of February is some really interesting energies, and I want to talk to you guys all about it. So obviously you saw I titled this video Deja Vu, and you'll see why when I get into my interpretation of this particular full moon. But the term deja vu actually comes from the French language, and it translates to already seen. It describes the eerie feeling or sensation that one has experienced the current situation or event, even though it's happening for the first time. So I'm sure you guys have had that moment, right? Where you're like, wait, I feel like I've been here before, or like, hasn't this already happened? Deja vu is often associated with a sense of like familiarity, and it can be accompanied by a feeling of strangeness and confusion. While technically deja vu has been recognized and experienced by people across all cultures throughout history, its precisely neurological and psychological mechanisms are still not fully understood. It's a phenomenon that's intrigued science, philosophers, psychologists for centuries, leading to various theories and explanations about its underlying causes. Some theories suggest that deja vu may arise from a glitch or error in the brain's memory processing system, leading to the sensation of familiarity with a new experience. Others propose that it may be linked to subconscious memories, dreams, alternate states of consciousness. Despite ongoing research and speculation, the exact cause of deja vu remains a subject of debate within the scientific and also spiritual communities. I, for one, feel like deja vu is definitely, like some say, a glitch in the matrix, maybe, but for me, it's always been like this alignment that's like, wait a second, I had a dream about this happening. I feel like this was, kind of like supposed to happen, or like being in places or seeing like scenes in my life play out. And I'm like, whoa, okay, I've definitely seen this before. For me, is always like, hey, pay attention, or like, you're on the right track. What are your guys' thoughts on deja vu? Now, the reason why I say that is when I get into the aspects of this full moon, you guys are going to start to see how there can be some glaringly obvious repeats that are going to be going on at the time of the full moon. And it's going to seem very eerily familiar to past situations, circumstances. It's really important to listen to our intuition during this time, because there are some very tricky Mercury aspects that will be happening around the time of the full moon, and honestly just after. Now, the full moon itself will be happening on February 24th, 2024. It'll be taking place at 5 degrees of Virgo. So if you have any personal planets from 4 to 6 degrees of Virgo, that's where you're going to want to pay attention. Okay, so every time we have the full moon, the moon is in opposition to the sun. And astrologically, a full moon is a time where it symbolizes like a culmination of, energies, a completion, and it illuminates something. Nothing shines brighter than the full moon. So it's kind of putting a spotlight emotionally, psychically, spiritually on all things Virgo. We have this once a year, and full moons are significant events that always bring heightened energy and intensity, both on a personal but also on a collective level. So here's some key themes that come up for me with a full moon in Virgo. Obviously, a full moon represents this midpoint in the lunar cycle. It's a time of things coming to fruition and completion. It may signify something that is being fulfilled or intentions that were set during a previous new moon phase is now manifesting and becoming visible. I've noticed like a trend here, like this full moon, the next lunar eclipse in Libra, they're all happening in fives. So fives have this connection and this association with the heart space, with children, with joy, with romance, with happiness. So that's going to be a pivotal kind of focus under the kind of like theme of Virgo. And obviously, you know, like I said, on full moons being like a culmination of energies, it's about kind of reaching that peak moment. And then the moon comes in and it illuminates something for us. So it can signify fulfillment of intentions. It can signify that, you know, there may be a need to shine a light on areas of our lives that maybe have been also hidden or overlooked, bringing clarity, insight, and awareness, illuminating both our conscious and our subconscious mind. There can definitely be a heightened sense of feeling like there's an illumination that's revealing certain truths to us, for us, and also emotions and patterns that need to be addressed and integrated. And I think that that's very much the case with this full moon. Now, we know when we have full moons, there's always this sense of there being more higher, you know, or heightened emotions or psychic sensitivity, because we're seeing that the moon is being highlighted and it's in opposition to the sun. So this opposition can create some tension, and we might notice that there's more polarity in our life than usual, leading to emotional fluctuations and sometimes conflict. Now, just be mindful of that. To be honest with you, a lot of the aspects involving the chart ruler or the full moon ruler, which is Mercury, is quite fascinating. But the moon itself, right, the full moon, is making some pretty decent aspects to Jupiter. So it does feel larger than life. It does feel abundant. It does provide physical and material growth. So a Jupiter trine is pretty sweet. But Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, and we're going to see Mercury that's going to be in Pisces. So it's going to be kind of debilitated being in its opposite kind of sign than where it's comfortable in Virgo. So we have to really get comfortable with both the Virgo and the Pisces side of life. So it's really kind of driving home the fact that we're seeing a lot of polarity out in the world. We're seeing a lot of polarity in our own world. And in order to better kind of get organized, become more productive, be healthy, serve, you know, focus on physical health, all these Virgo things, we have to take a look at what's going on behind the scenes. We have to look at the spiritual side. We have to look at the private side. We have to look at our relationship with Source, our sleep patterns, our meditation patterns, and all of the things that are connected to Pisces, because we've got more planetary energies going on in Pisces than we are seeing in Virgo. So very much like the hidden realms, our subconscious, you know, needs and desires, and also our relationship, I think, to spirit plays a huge role in what we're doing in the Virgo area of our life, how we're serving, how we're really showing up, and maybe being able to kind of help people who are in need. Now, full moons definitely really bring this feeling of releasing and letting go. Yes, you know, we're experiencing a full moon in Virgo, but we're coming into eclipse season also pretty soon as well. At the end of March, we're going to be seeing a lunar eclipse in Libra. So now we're kind of hitting that threshold where for the next several weeks, we're really feeling that buildup of the necessary changes coming. I always say that like Virgo energy or sixth house energy is a lot of where we get our own stuff together. We heal, we clean up, we kind of, you know, comb our hair, brush our teeth, make our bed, because it represents that energy right before we go and meet others in Libra. So it's a time also to reflect on, you know, what do I need to get in order? What am I focusing on in terms of productivity? How can I develop better habits? And this may be the time where you're kind of seeing, you know, how you're faring in regards to the balance between the mind, body, and spirit, right? Because there's a lot of spirit energies in Pisces. Watch for, you know, like I said, themes of releasing. So this can be an excellent time for releasing old patterns and beliefs or emotions that have been holding you back or keeping you from making space for new growth, for new habits, for new possibilities. I also feel like this is about cycles and patterns because full moons kind of symbolize the cyclical nature of life and the interconnectedness of all things. So they remind us that that life is a series of cycles, and with each full moon marking the end of a cycle and the beginning of another. So full moons invite us to reflect on the pattern and rhythms of our lives and embrace change and transformation. And I feel like change can be good. Obviously, we've been kind of in a season of change with this particular full moon. So many planets still in close proximity to Pluto, so it's intense, it's powerful, it's purging. And we have got Mercury and the Sun in close proximity to Saturn, karmic. It can feel heavy, it can feel emotionally challenging, and it can all have us kind of feeling like we need a little bit more time to like rest and reflect and recuperate. Now, overall, I think that this is a pretty positive moon, to be honest with you. When I look at the aspects that the moon is making, the trine to Jupiter really is wonderful. But I think the opposition to Mercury and Saturn teaches us that in order to really develop healthier habits and patterns, or to really kind of be our best selves, we have to also look within. It's not just doing all the busy work and, cleaning up or organizing or working out. It's like we have to have that balance spiritually and emotionally in order to be at our peak kind of performance, right, in Virgo. Now, the Sabian symbol that we're going to be taking a look at is going to be the Sabian symbol for 6 degrees of Virgo. Like I said, with Sabian symbols, we round up. So even though it's at 5 degrees, we're going to read 6. And this says, Virgo 6, a merry-go-round. The keyword is diversion. The theme is a cycle of experience. The symbol speaks to the repetition of cycles, particularly to cycles of enjoyment. The image of a merry-go-round alludes to time for fun. A play on words describes a merry-go-round is a type of light-hearted repartee with differing points of view are dealt with in a friendly or joking manner. The symbolic inference to cycles, sorry guys, the symbolic inference to cycles points to a need for individuals to stop and assess where they are in any particular cycle of experience and know when a cycle is complete. Okay, I'm going to put a pin in this for a second. I find myself, and I've noticed this especially when Virgo season comes around, when this degree gets triggered, being like, okay, I'm going to get off the merry-go-round. I've gotten the lesson, like I keep seeing the same patterns coming up over and over again. So you guys may feel like that's that connection to deja vu. It's like, haven't I been here before? Are we still going through this? Like, is this really coming up again? All right, so the suggestion here is that the situation is not released by the individual when the merry-go-round stops, then he will be stuck for another ride. It also alludes to the wisdom of not jumping off in the middle of the spin. At its highest, it represents resourcefulness and the ability to make a game of it when dealing with the unexpected challenges and emergencies. Watch for going in circles or the inability to learn from experience. The accent is on starting new cycles of experience and finishing old ones. Life may seem more hectic than usual. A person from the past may suddenly come back into your life, or you may have deja vu experience in some new situation. The greatest advantage lies in keeping your sense of humor and nurturing the creative child within. Look for ways to enjoy the things that you have to do. Make a game of it. Guard against setting yourself up for repeat difficult experiences by refusing to profit from your mistakes the first time around. Be careful on how you treat others. What goes around comes around. Stepping stones is cycles, going in circles, repetition, new opportunities, intensification, pleasure, enjoyment, play, amusement, and diversion. Well, what can I say? We know that mutable signs represent change, right? So when we look at Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, this is the time of the year where the seasons are changing. One is kind of fading out as they're getting ready for new cardinal energies. So in a way, we can be closing things up, wrapping things up, adjusting to change. Sure, that's possible. But I also think that this is about a change in our perspective. I love that it says like taking your responsibilities or something that you have to do and like making a game out of it and trying to make it fun. That's very like 5 degrees of Virgo, where Virgo is all about duty and, being able to perfect something. Fives talk about creativity and having fun and being youthful and being creative. So it might be about finding creative solutions to reoccurring problems. And it doesn't mean that the same thing has to keep happening, but you might notice that, it's like a different relationship, but some of the same problems are coming up, or, a new job, you're starting to see stuff that's kind of surfacing in that job that reminds you of why you left your last one. So that deja vu energy of being like, been there, done that, not going back on that kind of like roller coaster or that ride is likely going to come up from this particular full moon. I think about the merry-go-round and the nature of it spinning around, and it kind of references that, life operates in cycles. So just like the motion of the ride, it has highs and lows. It has moments of excitement and moments of calm. It signifies that life is constantly in motion, and when it feels like we're going in circles, sometimes we can feel like we're kind of, never kind of getting ahead, but other times we can feel like, hey, we're actually having fun, we're experiencing what's going on, and obviously it can also be dizzying. I definitely know my fair share of people who are not fan of those types of rides. I think about repetition too, because, you see a merry-go-round, it's like they put the kids on the merry-go-round, they get their token, they go around a couple times, they get off, and then, more people get on. And seeing the same thing over and over again. So it can symbolize the repetitive patterns and routines in our lives, and it prompts us to reflect on the habits and cycles that we engage in and consider whether or not they're actually serving our highest good. And if there are areas that we need to break free from, if they are repetitive. Kind of reminds me of like Groundhog's Day, where it's just like the same thing day in, day out. If you guys have seen that movie, he keeps waking up over and over, and it's like getting to the point where he knows what's going to happen and when, right? Obviously he can't get out of like that sequence, but you get what I'm saying, that there can be this feeling of just going through the motions and not really questioning or asking yourself, well, why do I behave that way? Or, if I do want a different outcome, then like, why am I not making changes? So it can bring that sense of awareness for you as well. And then obviously, the joy and playfulness aspect of it, not just because it's at a 5, but merry-go-rounds are associated with like fun and, youth and children and being playful. Generally, you see them at, an amusement park, or you see them at a circus, or maybe if you're somebody who grew up in the 80s or the 90s, you saw them in your malls. And they evoke a sense of like innocence and carefree enjoyment. So the symbol can remind us to find joy in the simple pleasures of life and kind of embrace our inner childlike spirit, even amidst the challenges. So it can be like this kind of like relax, enjoy the ride to some extent, but it could also represent where maybe rather than getting kind of overwhelmed with everything spinning around us, we have to really take time to really dig into that earthly energy of Virgo and ground our energies, even when it seems like there can be like a bit of a whirlwind kind of going on and hard for us to kind of find our firm footing or stable ground. Now, in my opinion, a full moon in Virgo is a really good time to focus on purification and self-improvement. Sure, if you want to organize, or if you want to, focus on, new health goals, you can do that too. But this is a great time to declutter your physical space. Establish healthy routines and pay attention to your physical and your mental well-being. That is so important with the oppositions to Pisces. Setting intentions around practical goals such as improving productivity or developing new skills can be particularly effective during this time. Additionally, engaging in spiritual practices that combine both the analytical and the intuitive approaches, such as journaling or meditation, can really help you harness the energy of this full moon for personal growth and transformation. Now, all full moons represent the polarity between the sun being in one sign, which represents consciousness. Okay, so this is the sun in Pisces, and the moon being in one sign, which represents subconsciousness. Okay, so this is kind of our emotional state. So it's interesting to see that, collectively with the moon in Virgo, a lot of people are focusing on health, animals, our to-do list, getting organized, whatever. But really it's in polarity to Mercury, the sun, and Saturn. So it's where a harsh mind, isolation, limitation, struggling with sleep, issues emotionally or psychologically or spiritually can have a huge impact on the effects of the physical body. So we have to really look at both of the signs during a full moon, but especially during this one, when we have some pretty powerful energies building with a stellium of planets in the sign of Pisces. So when we look at Virgo, mutable earth, right, ruled by Mercury, it has this energy that's very practical, very attention to detail. It's associated with qualities like analytical thinking, efficiency, and service for other people. Virgos are known for their ability to analyze situations, problem solve, and pay attention to, the finer points and things. They can always spot when something's off, or how to kind of perfect something, or how to break something down and kind of put it back together in a better way. And this is a sign that is connected to being able to give that criticism, even though it might seem like criticism, it's constructive, to make the world a better place, a better functioning place, a better organized place, a healthier place. And it requires a lot of work, both mentally as well as physically. So obviously it's got connections to things like our workspace, our coworkers, routines, habits, self-improvement, pets, our to-do list. All of these things are kind of under the category of Virgo. Now the polarity of that is Pisces, which could sometimes be no further in, polarity point. I think this is one of the most interesting, axes in the zodiac personally, because I feel like they're just so polar opposite, but sometimes can be very, very similar. Pisces is mutable water. Okay. So that's where the sun is. And Pisces, being a water sign connected with Neptune, traditionally Jupiter, represents intuition, empathy and spirituality. And Pisces is associated with qualities such as compassion, creativity, sensitivity, and emotions of other people. So Pisces energy is known for really a lot of depth in emotional insight, imagination, and a connection to the unseen realms. This sign has strong connections and associations with spirituality, dreams, and surrender. So we look at the moon being in this sign of Virgo, but its ruler being in Pisces. So it's, kind of debilitated, where you've got a very mental planet, right? A planet that's all about communication moving through, a Neptunian sign. It's like, trying to communicate underwater. Unless you're like an otter or a mermaid or a whale, like it's not going to work, right? So Mercury in Pisces represents this energy of trying to find the words, struggling with getting the words out because they feel so deeply. So when we see Mercury in opposition to the moon, Mercury right behind the sun, which represents something that's getting ready to be kind of seen, or some kind of statement or information that's coming out. Right, on the heels of this particular full moon, we're going to see a triple conjunction, and then Mercury in close proximity to Saturn, which is a really kind of rigid, restricted mind. The spiritual and the emotional impact everything in the sixth house. So it's really kind of saying, on a global scale, we think about, the overwhelming stuff that's going on with, immigration. Pisces represents people who are lost. So people who are seeking asylum, or, they're kind of moving and kind of relocating and going into new places that are foreign to them. This is having a huge impact on the sixth house energies of Virgo. Recently, I was listening to an article or somebody was talking about and discussing how in Denver, basically they've come out and said that they're having to make budget cuts, and that these budget cuts are going to have huge impacts on parks and recreation. So this is just an example of how this energy kind of works. And they were saying that they're going to have to be cutting parks and recreation programs there like by 25%. So they're saying they're doing this to be able to kind of shore up and create more resources up to the tune of about $5 million. So they have more money to allocate towards migrants who are now overwhelming parts of Denver. I don't live there. This is just what I saw in the press briefing with, I think it was the mayor. Anyway, so they're cutting parks and recreations, right? Services. So I think of like the sixth house as like, parks, centers and places where people can go, for example, people who might be homeless, or, veterans, older people, to be able to get help or assistance, or also just to be able to connect and be outside. So they're saying that they're not going to be able now to, keep up the parks as much. You're going to have less groundkeepers. They're not going to be planting flowers. They're not going to be doing things because they need to give time, services, and space to some of these people who are overwhelming that part of Colorado. Perfect example. I think of like Mercury as being people who take care of things and they tend to things. And so we're seeing now Mercury in Pisces, so it can represent, well, we need that money for places for people to sleep, or we need that money to ensure that hospitals aren't getting overwhelmed, or we need to be creating shelter and giving them food and other things, which is, once again, in its fall. So Mercury, being in this sign, it's requiring some kind of a sacrifice. So the sacrifice is like the actual goods and services that are needed by that community. This is like a perfect example. Will we see more of this collectively because of the full moon? Perhaps. The unfortunate thing is that with this opposition to Mercury in an opposite sign and in close proximity to Sun and Saturn, I don't really feel like enough people are getting the message or starting to see how much this is going to be impacting local communities yet. It's going to be more visual when we start seeing like Mars coming into Pisces, when we have the eclipses the end of March, beginning of April. We'll see eclipses that form conjunctions to Saturn. So we're really going to start seeing how this is going to be impacting us, for quite some time. I do feel like this is going to be also bringing up the theme revolving around, well, who do we save? Who do we help? Who's worthy of help and assistance? And that's not me to be judge and jury, but that may be the conversations that we're having with Mercury in opposition to this moon. Anyway, just an example. When I think of the Pisces-Virgo axis, I think of the difference between practicality and intuition, and the fact that it's not black and white, it's not one or the other, it's a need to actually integrate both, especially seeing the ruler of the full moon in Pisces. So Virgo's, practicality balances Pisces' intuition, and Virgo helps kind of, ground Pisces' dreams and visions into tangible action and plans. So it doesn't let Pisces get too off in like no man's land and daydream. They say kind of get real, come up with a plan, stick to a consistent, kind of set list of things to do. So that way you're kind of getting out of your own way. And Pisces also, in all their on all their defense, they encourage Virgo to see beyond just what is obvious and consider the broader kind of spiritual or emotional implications. So I do think that, having the ruler being in Pisces is that we're going to have intuitive hits, right? We're going to have deja vu moments. We're going to have moments where we're going to say, wait a second, this is faintly similar, like repetitive of things I've dealt with in the past. Or if we kind of zoom out a little bit, we think of like some of the patterns that have happened in recent years where many people have had to make a lot of sacrifices, sacrificing their jobs, sacrificing their resources, sacrificing their free time, and having to make a lot of concessions because of what was going on out in the world with health concerns. This gives me deja vu. I look at this and I go, I think we're going to be seeing some similar things that are going to be going on. And some people are probably going to have a bit of like a record scratch moment where they're going to be like, no, we've done this before. That didn't work the first time. Is this really a good idea to go back into this kind of a situation? I think about the attention to detail versus like the bigger picture, and especially because Jupiter is traditionally the ruler of Pisces. So, with Virgo's attention to detail and Pisces' big picture kind of vision, sometimes they clash, but Virgo can help Pisces refine and organize their ideas, while Pisces is helping Virgo to see, like what is possible. We've got Virgo being very analytical, and I think it complements Pisces' emotional understanding. And Virgo helps Pisces approach situations with logic and discernment. So there's a lot of playing off of each other. I think also it helps us kind of get to a deeper level of purpose. Having Mercury and Saturn in Pisces, it's kind of like, well, like, how can we help? How can we offer more assistance, and what is possible? And it's going to encourage people to be kind of like meditating on, kind of the best method or the best direction forward to help others or to help ourselves. Obviously, this goes hand in hand with service and other people and compassion, because Virgo is very service oriented. So this is a good full moon to really be thinking about what you can be doing for other people. It can be about practical assistance. And then, the Pisces energy is about extending unconditional love and support to those who are in need, making them a very powerful team when it comes to helping and healing endeavors. So not all is what it seems. We might find that some of the manifestations of this full moon are things that are kind of coming from the ethers, or it's coming from meditation, it's coming from prayer, time with, our spiritual community, our religious community, and helping us really kind of get in touch with what it means to actually show up and be of service. Now, this particular full moon is just loaded with a ton of aspects, so I really want to touch on some of the Mercury stuff. The spiritual side effects of, I think, of a full moon in Virgo is definitely about, being able to find that balance between the practical and the impractical. With Mercury opposing in Pisces, I think that there's a tension between rational thinking and intuitive insights. Usually Mercury in Virgo is like very detail oriented, organized, very direct. They have everything labeled, they have a system. And Mercury in Pisces does not function that way. It has to wait until it receives the download or the dream or the intuitive hit, or it has to feel into the emotions before it's able to make a decision. So this can be a time that it's really important to integrate both logic and intuition into our decision-making process. With the Sun conjunct Saturn as well, this adds a whole other layer of discipline and structure to our spiritual pursuits. It encourages us to take responsibility for our spiritual growth and to commit to the necessary work to achieve our goals. Sun Saturn is serious business. That means that this is the line, this is the commitment, this is the responsibility. And I think we're hearing some of this mirrored out in the world, just with some of the stuff that I've heard in like literally recent days and weeks, revolving around talks about like homing and finding space for migrants. It's not all about that, but I can see that because the Pisces energy is like, well, do we have space? Do we have an extra room? Pisces can be about where people need to sleep. So I think you're going to hear more of that chatter where people are discussing whether or not that's a good idea, where we're going to be able to, give, a space for some of these people to find some peace and quiet. Regardless of how you feel about that, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I do think that we're going to be really looking at the big picture, kind of being like, how is potentially looking at, housing this many people going to have an impact on all of us physically, energetically, our healthcare systems, as well as our public systems, not just parks. I'm thinking about like veterans. I'm thinking about food and also resources. When you have some areas where you have tons of people who are coming through cities, that might exhaust potential resources for local residents. Now, with Mercury being in Pisces, it's considered weak, like I said, because it's in opposition to Mercury's natural rulership. So basically what this is saying is that, communication and thinking processes or thinking rationally maybe much more difficult during this full moon. Usually Mercury thrives in, Gemini and Virgo, where it is able to express, communicate, and really be more analytical or curious. So as it's in Pisces during the time of this full moon, we feel like, Mercury's rational or logical nature becomes a little bit more muddled, being in like a Neptunian energy. So the positive is, you can be more intuitive, you can be more imaginative, more emotionally driven, because Pisces is a water sign associated with depth and sensitivity. But I do feel like this is kind of indicating that there can be more indirect, subtle, or prone to misunderstanding energies at the time of this full moon. So, also with Mercury being in Pisces, communication may be more poetic. It can be more imaginative. You might feel inclined to express yourself through art or music or nonverbal means rather than having a straightforward conversation. So there can be a tendency for vagueness and confusion and miscommunication, and it's really important during this full moon to clarify something. Read the fine print, ask all the questions, really make sure that you have your facts and your information and your details, because there can be, a little bit of like a telephone game kind of going on. I do feel like I would pay attention during this full moon to like nonverbal cues and emotions and underlining meanings in conversations. Engage in practices that are going to help enhance your creativity, intuition, or spiritual connection, such as like meditation, journaling, or creative expression. Tarot cards, astrology, these are all kind of more metaphysical Pisces things. Dream interpretation may be a big one here as well. And with that moon in opposition to Saturn and Mercury, I feel like this is really representing a tension between emotional needs and responsibilities, as well as challenges in communication and clarity. Because the moon represents emotions and instincts, and Saturn represents structure and discipline, limitations. So Mercury's involvement in the opposition basically talks about communication issues leading to misunderstandings or delays in expressing your feelings or needs. So there's a lot of like, Moon in Virgo, what do you need? How can I fix it? How can we make it better? Like, how can we clean this up? And then Mercury, Sun, and Neptune is like, I don't know. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what to do, and just like shuts down, goes back to sleep, hits the snooze button, finds the challenge in communicating and expressing themselves, therefore missing an opportunity to connect. Anytime you see planets in opposition to Saturn, it limits the effects of this particular planet. So the moon wants to be emotional, wants to heal, wants to help, and Saturn is saying, nope, I'm not allowing that to happen. I'm gonna let you figure it out for yourself. Moon in opposition to the Sun in Saturn is also saying that you might feel like there's outside forces beyond you that are keeping you from being able to kind of, get to that next step. And then Moon in opposition to Mercury seems to indicate that there's a really difficult time emotionally connecting and sharing, your emotions or your feelings. So people might be feeling more wanting to kind of stick or be stuck in kind of like 5 of Cups energy, victim mentality, what's the point? I don't even want to try, this, that, and the other. So you want to be really careful with that because it's really easy to kind of get lost in all of like that Neptunian haze. Watch for frustration, loneliness, insecurity. This can be coming from the Saturn-Moon opposition, restriction, emotional expression. But I feel like it's offering us the opportunity to address any underlying fears or insecurities that may be hindering communication or emotional fulfillment. Because when we acknowledge it and we work through these challenges with patience, honesty, and compassion, it's possible to find a balance between emotional needs and responsibilities, as well as improve our communication and understanding in relationships. So you want to watch for extremes on either end. Are you being the victim or are you being the savior? Because you're going to find that a lot of people are going to fall into one of those two camps. And if you're reaching too hard to kind of reach somebody to help somebody and they're not, willing to kind of step up and receive that help or help themselves, you have to let them be, right? And give people time to kind of marinate in this before they decide that they've figured out what it is they want or if they even want to take action. Because coming into the tail end of the astrological new year, as all these planets are going through the late degrees of Aquarius and then into Pisces, it's like everything is winding down. The true new year will be when we have the sun's ingress into Aries. That's when we get that fresh start. And then we have a retrograde and an eclipse in Aries season. So it's natural for a lot of people to be kind of saying, I feel like things are slowing down, or I kind of feel like I need to kind of get quiet or keep to myself, right? Anyway, so, the big aspects are basically for me, the ruler Mercury, being in its opposite sign, the conjunction between Mercury, Sun, and Saturn. We've got a moon that trines Jupiter, which can be very fortuitous, very beneficial. I like this for finding the right people to help us. Like if you need a dog walker, a trainer, if you need an assistant, if you need to have somebody come in and, help you with your diet or organize your space, like that trine to Jupiter makes me feel like you could find the best person for the job. There is a solution. Granted, you may have to pay for it. Jupiter and Taurus is like, well, it's going to be costly. Yeah, but is it worth feeling better? Is it worth going, and seeing the doctor? Is it worth going and, paying for the gym membership? For some people, it's going to require not just a physical commitment, but also really reevaluating what's important to you. What are your goals? What are your values? How can you align that more and pull yourself out of like that kind of Pisces hole and kind of get into healthier habits and patterns? Now, we are also seeing that the moon will in conjunct or quincunx Pluto. Okay, so it's coming into some uncomfortable angles really with all of this, Aquarius. And for me, that kind of represents, where we are unwilling to create change. This is actually 8 signs away from Pluto. And so it can represent health changes, career changes, office changes, scheduling changes. I think we're going to see a lot of people that are going to be having some job changes with this particular full moon because the full moon is in opposition to Sun, Saturn, and Mercury. This could represent where bosses, leaders, businesses are kind of saying, you know what, or, you know, we didn't see this coming, but we have to have some, you know, kind of cutbacks, or we have some budgeting cuts that are coming up, or people who are having layoffs. I've thought that anyway with the transits coming up in the spring. I think with some of the conjunctions that we're going to be seeing to the North Node in Aries season, and also as we see Jupiter go into Gemini, I think we're going to see higher unemployment rates, unfortunately, and I think we're going to see some layoffs. Could part of this be because of advancement in AI and technology? Yeah, sure. Yeah, that could be the case. But also, it's a sign that the economy is slowing down. If people like Amazon or, you know, major big box stores are slowing down and they're cutting jobs, it's not just because of integration in, you know, AI and new technologies. It's people have to buy things, right? So if people aren't buying things, they're not going to continue to expand. So I think that may be part of it as well. We start to kind of realize, hold on, you know, there's some issues that's going on with our relationship to our work schedule or our routine. Full moon in Virgo will definitely bring that up for some people. Some signs will feel that more than others. Then we're going to see that even in the midst of in conjunct Mars and Pluto to the moon, something that we do have is a kind of like a slight focal point. I mean, you know, Venus is starting to come into a sextile with the North Node. So the moon kind of in conjunct that North Node, and also in conjunct Venus and Mars, can indicate, hey, you know, the way out of this is to basically like bring attention and awareness to this, rather than, you know, being about, well, you know, Pisces, take a pill, here's a medication, you know, just get some more sleep or watch some TV, have some booze or some drugs. Like Virgo says, no, are you crazy? Like, you know, stop drinking, like fix your immune system, eat healthier foods, you know, make sure that you're having healthy patterns, and kind of ritualizing the idea of health, and trying to provide new systems, right? So it can really be highlighting like, you know, are we too isolated? Are we too reliant on some of these things? Are we hooked on television? And is it creating, you know, physical but also psychological issues for us because of some of these fixations and obsessions? Maybe, perhaps. We will see Venus also coming into a square with Jupiter. So if you guys caught my video on Tuesday on Mars and Venus, I talk about how this is the first planet, you know, with Mars and Venus to come into a square with Jupiter. So big love stories, big money stories, you know, big, I think, swings maybe with the financial market. That might be happening there as well, especially because Venus is connected to the South Node, which can be about kind of leaving or losses. So big financial repercussions for leaving partnerships, relationships, major physical changes, self-esteem changes, shifts in regards to your values as a result of that as well. Mars and Venus are still in close proximity to Pluto, so there is still this very futuristic, rebellious, freedom-loving, innovative. I mean, this is all about social movements. So that's still kind of in the background. And if you guys saw that video, I talked about how I was like, on one hand, you have like all these rebellious spirits that are really gearing up for, you know, unity and inspiring other people and being leaders. And then on the other hand, you've got some of these collective energies with Mercury, Saturn, you know, the Sun, and Neptune and Pisces, where some people are okay being in the shadows, being in the swampland. They just want to disassociate. They don't want to acknowledge what's going on. They don't want to speak up. They'd rather keep to themselves. So you're going to see a lot of polarity with those two particular stelliums happening at the same time. And then finally, and this is a positive aspect. We've got a couple of actually really nice Jupiter aspects, not just the moon trine Jupiter, but we've got Saturn sextile Jupiter as well. So it's about a 1-degree orb, where Saturn says, you know, limitation, slowing down, blockages, karma, responsibility. Jupiter says for sustained growth. So it's almost kind of lassoing Jupiter, saying like, I'll let you grow, but I'm not going to let you do it. I'm not going to let you do it too quickly. So actually, this is a positive aspect where if we're focusing more on our dreams and our spiritual practice and our commitment and our meditation and what we're visualizing and vision boarding, we're holding that image, because Saturn in Pisces is teaching all of us, are we going to make our dreams a reality? Or is it something that's just kind of like made of sand and isn't going to kind of dissipate? So this is where we start to see what dreams are really made of. If we are willing to hold that vision for ourselves, then we are able to kind of see that growth that is necessary. The problem is that, you know, with the moon in opposition to Mercury, Sun, and Saturn, people can be very critical. You can get a lot of like really challenging, but also constructive criticism where, you know, superiors, bosses, leaders, other people can be very harsh in terms of their perspective, right, about systems, or they could be giving very grim, you know, perspectives on the future, or they can be very critical about, you know, where we are with certain job numbers or things like that. So watch for the rigidness and the harshness, I think, of the mind. I feel like with Mercury in Pisces in the conjunction to the sun, it's like we have to not go to worst case scenario. We have to be more focusing on holding that vision for where we see our life going. And when you do that, then you're really tapping into the sextile to Jupiter. Then you're really kind of saying, okay, in order to get from point A to point B, it is possible, but I have to be realistic. I can't have my head in the clouds and just be like assuming that everything's going to work out and it's going to be okay. Virgo teaches us that, you know, there's something about having a sense of pride of perfecting something and rolling up your sleeves and doing it the right way and cleaning it and taking care of it and grooming it, or, you know, pruning it until it is a polished piece of art or work. But very, very difficult when it comes to communication with this full moon. And I feel like we have to be really looking within and asking ourselves, is this our purpose? You know, what does this really mean? Looking beyond just the surface level of things and deeply analyzing signs and symbols and messages from the universe and our spirit team, angel numbers, license plates, right? All the ways that Mercury kind of plays tricks. That's what we want to be paying attention to. Now, this has nothing to do with the full moon. I will probably still do a video on this, but I wanted to include this in this because I wanted to show you guys something. I feel like I talked about this in a previous video. I don't know, deja vu. I think I did. You guys have to let me know. But on the 28th, we're going to see a triple conjunction. And I want to show you guys this. So this is the full moon on the 24th, okay? So at 5 degrees. And then on the 28th, just a couple days later, we have a triple conjunction between the Sun, Mercury, and Saturn. I'm pretty sure I spoke about this, but I'm going to speak about it again. The Sun, leaders, right? Men, powerful people, celebrities, maybe. Mercury, communication, ideas, information. Obviously, Mercury is in its fall. And it's going to be a cazimi because Mercury is going to pull ahead of the Sun. So not only is there something coming out, but what's coming out may not be so positive because of the conjunction with Saturn. So we're going to hear things like headlines, information, stuff that's either being censored, limited. I really think that this has got connections to like shadow banning stuff. What can be read, what can be watched on TV, what can be seen. And then, yeah, you know, and then Saturn being there. So it's kind of unusual to see a cazimi come in with Saturn. Okay, so food for thought. In the background, I think about how Jupiter is the dispositor traditionally of Pisces. And that we see Jupiter in Taurus, it's at 11 degrees. So that's at a degree where things can surge, where stuff can get more expensive or something can kind of grow. And we're watching Mars square Uranus. So this can be like a day where we're hearing like, oh, there's steps that's being taken to, you know, limit people's ability to read something, to buy something, to possess something. But a cazimi is a moment that's generally beneficial, right? As Mercury pulls ahead of the Sun, it says, hi, I have this message for you. I'm relaying this. It's very important, but it involves Saturn. So I'm looking for really significant statements from world leaders. I'm looking for really important laws that are potentially being passed, especially involving funding in regards to, you know, the migrant situation. I'm looking for really significant statements from judges or from Supreme Court justices, and the list goes on. So what I will do is this. I want to read to you guys the Sabian symbol for Pisces, 9 degrees. So technically it's 10 degrees. So let me read that to you. And yes, it has nothing to do with the full moon, but it's still within the full moon energies. Okay, it's just after the full moon. So it's still kind of baked into it. I just don't think it becomes more visible until about the 28th. Okay, so Pisces 10. An aviator in the clouds. Keyword is observation. The theme is global perspective. The symbol speaks to rising above the limitations of eye-to-eye problems to solving and viewing things from a higher and more holistic point of view. The image of an aviator in the clouds emphasizes imagination, exploration, and curiosity. The implication here is that this degree refers to creative or abstract thinking and at the development and testing of new ideas. At its highest, the symbol represents a broad-mindedness, exceptional scope of vision, and the ability to foresee a plan effectively for future needs. Watch for head in the clouds, impracticality, aloofness, and rejection of social responsibility. The accent is on perspective. What seems to be true at first may not, when all the factors are taken into consideration. Your greatest advantage lies in distancing yourself from a difficult problem or situation in order to take a more objective view. Look at the whole picture. Find the patterns in things and events. Guard against losing touch with what's going on by isolating yourself or living in a dream world. Don't get trapped in your own mind and blind yourself to the obvious. Stepping stones are transcendence, exploration, perspective, overview, circumspection, observation, vision, long-range planning, going beyond, rising above, viewpoint, outlook, and abstract thinking. Well, we know that nines deal with Sagittarius energy. So airplanes, higher vantage points, international or national matters, anything that involves, Sagittarius type stuff. So I do think that we're going to be hearing more about global movements, especially when it comes to, money, banking, resources, the earth, physical possession of land. Keep in mind in the background, because this is all connected to Venus, and Venus is coming into a square with Uranus, this is where things get real. We're going to see the ramping up the end of February going into March about the real implications of what they're claiming is like climate change issues or concerns for the future. But really, this is going to be about how it impacts what you can buy, what you consume, what food is available. And I think that you're going to be hearing, people making statements about, we need to make sacrifices, Pisces. There are certain things that we need to learn to do without. And I'm watching to see who makes that statement. Certainly, like I said, a Cazimi generally is positive, but the conjunction to Saturn does not make me feel as such. And call me critical, but the last week or so, I've been thinking a lot about what's been going on. And it really hit home for me after I was listening to that situation in Denver, because they were saying, one of the biggest things that they're doing is they are shutting down the Denver DMVs. And so for people who want to renew their DMVs, they're having to do so online. Now you can still send it, in the mail, but they're saying that they are shutting down offices and, taking some of those funds to, put towards the current crisis in Denver. And while it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, okay, outside of, taking away from programs where you have after school programs that would be for, potentially, youth who really need those programs, whether it's support after school or just having a healthy environment where they receive support with their community so they're not getting into trouble. Beyond that, I think about how they're saying, we're going to expedite this and make it possible for everybody to update their vehicles online. What is that creating? Less of an in-person interaction. And trust me, like you, I can't stand the DMV, all right? But it's creating less of a one-on-one interaction. It's closing down jobs and job opportunities, forcing people to then have to go online and have to register and do things online. So they're using these generated crises with migrants to say, now we don't have the money for certain things. You're the one who has to make the sacrifice. Now you have to go online and everything becomes digital. Now, when you start to look at it like that, it's not really that different than what's happened with grocery stores in recent years. Scanning your own groceries, having to walk up, putting it in a cart, a camera being on your face, watching what you're buying, and essentially having to pay for groceries that are grossly overpriced only to bag them yourself, and you don't have a human interaction. This is the energy that we are seeing of Pluto in Aquarius. So we're seeing, mass movements, crisis, Pluto, all these things happening where technology is stepping in, and it's actually, creating financial problems that we didn't really have as much before. So, maybe I'm being critical, but I'm anticipating that there's gonna be more of this. And I think with the Sun, Mercury, Saturn conjunction, I'm not as optimistic about the conjunction, because I do feel like what it's going to be bringing up is messages from leaders that's like, hey, you have to take them into your house, or, you have to be willing to sacrifice, these resources, which you pay taxes into, by the way, but now it's going to be going and it's going to be, helping people that we didn't vote to bring here. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, depending on your, political beliefs, to each their own, but this is the time where people are going to start realizing that it doesn't really matter where you live. It's going to start impacting where you're living. Even if it's in none of these areas, none of these sanctuary cities, you're going to start seeing the impact. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I know that a lot of you guys don't always agree with, my political stuff. I try to kind of like stay on the center with that and not kind of go too far off of it. But I think about how this is basically saying, the information that comes out during this time, look at the bigger picture. Don't just look at what you're being told here. How is this going to impact things, moving forward? And I feel like people are clearly not aware of like the Bill of Rights and the fact that there is like a particular excerpt, I'm not sure which one it is, that literally states that you do not have to house people. If you want to, you can. All more power to you if that's what you want to do. But you legally, in the Bill of Rights, you cannot be forced to do that. I think that stems directly from, if I'm not mistaken, from the Revolutionary War, where Americans were being forced by the British to house British soldiers. We don't have to do that anymore. That's not something that's required. So it's something you guys might want to think about. I don't know. I will take you through the 12 rising signs. I want to talk to you guys about where this full moon is taking place, how this may impact you. Remember, you have to also look at Mercury. So you want to look at what's going on with Mercury, Saturn, and Pisces. Some information coming in intuitively, something that you're picking up or something that you feel that may not seem rational, but there may be some kind of connection to that for the full moon for you. Now, I'm a Western astrologer. I practice Western astrology for the sake of my videos. I always do this in whole sign. It makes it easier for those of you guys who listen. If you are not a whole sign user, no worries. You can look at your Placidus for 5 degrees, okay? So anywhere around 4 or 5 degrees of Virgo is where you're gonna see this full moon taking place. So let me pull that up for Aries. I'm gonna go a little bit later, actually. Give me 1 second. There we go. So I'm going to start with Aries and Aries rising. I will go through all of the 12 rising signs. I recommend listening to your rising sign first, then listen to your sun sign and your moon sign. Personally, I feel like full moons, we should always listen to our moon sign because that's really applying to what we need emotionally. All 3 may resonate a little bit. And like I said, you can use whole sign or you can listen to your Placidus for about 5 degrees of Virgo. All right, so watch for that Mercury opposition. I'll show it to all of you guys. And we're going to start first with Aries and Aries rising. So you guys are going to have a full moon in Virgo. The full moon will be in your 6th house. Now, what's interesting is that it will oppose the Sun, Mercury, and Saturn. So it looks like there can be some sit-down conversation with a boss. You may, be aware of some secret change that's going on in the workplace. This can be quite literally health related and how it's requiring you to focus more on health, resting, and recuperation, and some kind of completion or some awareness maybe of like a physical, health matter that you're, becoming aware of that you need to tend to. Obviously, the 6th house deals with both health and work. So you may also feel like health and work routines are under scrutiny, and it's a time to focus on practical strategies for improving your physical and mental well-being, as well as increasing your efficiency in your work environments. You might feel like, I don't want to work around other coworkers. Like, I want to be in my cubicle, or I want to go into my office and shut the door. Like, give me some space. I need some alone time. That's one way that this can manifest. especially because, you know, you've got this moon that's in conjunct or quincunx Mars. So you might kind of feel like there's just too much togetherness with some people and you need to like retreat a little bit at the time of the full moon. Anyway, let's take a look. Let's see what the cards say for you, Aries. The card that I get is the Ten of Cups. So that's actually a wonderful card. This can be about, you know, fulfillment. It can be about emotional fulfillment. It can be about joy, happiness. Can there be, you know, big things going on at work where like a coworker's got something really positive going on? Sure. I do feel like this is about emotional well-being and making sure that you're mastering and prioritizing what's going on with your emotions. So if you have to put your feelings first above work, your to-do list, your responsibilities, so be it. Ten of Cups talks about, you know, being able to find what's going to be the most emotionally fulfilling, what's going to give you the most happiness, the most joy. Probably what you're finding is that, you know, there may be a little too much socializing going on, quite literally, with Mars and Venus in the 11th house. And maybe you're just kind of feeling like burnt out because there's been a lot of togetherness with other people. And while you're really happy with what's been kind of happening, you need a little bit more time to kind of rest and recuperate. Anyway, good luck, Aries. All right, so we have Taurus and Taurus rising. You're going to be doing this full moon in the sign of Virgo in your natal 5th house. All right, Taurus, well, this is a sister earth sign, so you'll be experiencing trines to your sun, moon, or rising, most likely, especially if you're within like the first 10 degrees of Taurus. And I'm loving that trine to Jupiter. It's particularly sweet. Now, a full moon in the 5th house, okay, with Mercury in opposition. So there's so much going on with networks, friends, groups of people, goals, you know, connections to others. And then the full moon in the 5th house is more about your happiness, your creativity, your love life, your children, your creative hobbies, right? Your talents. Now, in this particular chart, Mercury rules the 5th house and it also rules the 2nd house. So it can represent a time where maybe you have a difference of opinion on what you value than a friend. Maybe there is a sense of, you know, really needing to be around other people to show your creative work with. So you might be collaborating with others. I think this is where like practicality meets creativity and romance. And you may find yourself, you know, approaching creative projects or romantic relationships with much more discipline in a sense of your mindset and focusing on practical outcomes and long-term goals. So where a 5th house full moon can be like completing a project, especially work-related, it can be about, you know, a hobby that you're perfecting, you're taking it and you're sharing it with others. So you're sharing it in collaboration, you know, with a like a team of people. Like you take your business or your product, you know, online, or you're taking it to a market where there's other people selling things. You're really finding ways to find joy through connecting and also maybe even like learning and investing in your relationships with other people. So it's positive. Yes, a full moon in the 5th house is true love. It's romantic. It's a time where you go to a party and you might meet someone. It can also be an indication of pregnancy, Taurus, because the 5th house is children and the trine to Jupiter on your ascendant. So this can be about a lot of people coming together to celebrate something you've created. So it can be a business, but it can also be like a kid's birthday party, or it can be, you know, like a gender reveal party that can be coming up here as well. Good luck. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You'll be doing this full moon in Virgo in your natal 4th house. Well, Gemini, the moon's returning to a place where it's very comfortable. It likes being in the 4th house, and it is in a sign that is also like you, ruled by Mercury. So you're kind of in the crosshairs here, okay? So my mutable signs, especially Gemini and Sagittarius, you guys are kind of the focal points of what will be a square. So there's going to be a couple of different moving parts. But basically a full moon in the 4th house, this is, you know, a need to bring order and organization to your home and to your family life. You could be working on home improvement projects or addressing family responsibilities with a practical approach. Mercury is the ruler and it's going to be at the top part of your chart. Conjunct Saturn and the sun. So it does seem to me like there's a lot of like communicating with parents, communicating with business partners, communicating maybe even with people at work about, you know, what your needs are. It might be a time where you have to, like, if you have kids, you know, you're acting like more of like a disciplinarian, or you're having to be like a little bit more stern with, you know, how the house is being run, sure. But you're kind of getting pulled between the focus emotionally being within the home and the family life, while you have Saturn and Mercury and the Sun at the top part of your chart. So there can be a lot of being like, man, there's a lot of work going on, you know, I've got a lot of responsibility, a lot's on my plate. And the impact that that's having, or what that's potentially changing, immutable signs at home. If you happen to have Gemini that's like within, you know, that 4, 5, 6 degrees, you're really going to feel the square. And I really feel like the answer to this is like communication, like being able to communicate and really telling people what you've got going on. So be mindful of that. And I realize a lot of my Tauruses are probably like, oh my God, I didn't get my card. Sorry, guys. Let me pull. This is for Taurus. Okay, Taurus, what you get is the Ace of Coins. So this is about physical growth, expansion, good luck, positivity in regards to resources and money. I feel like for you, Taurus, this can be about an investment paying off, investing in yourself, investing in things that make you happy, but it's good money stuff. Okay, sorry I missed you guys. All right, so this is for Gemini now. So for you, Gemini, let's see what I have for you in terms of this full moon in your 4th house. I get the Hierophant. So interesting. You know, I see this as like really showing up and being seen as like the boss. And I don't know if it's at home or if it's at work. It could be either or with the polarity that you have between the two. I feel like it's about maybe voicing, you know, with superiors and people at work, what your home responsibilities are and like where you need to be focused if you're feeling like there's so much, you know, that's being put on you at work. The Hierophant talks about Taurus. So it does talk about, you know, professionals finding your space in society. It talks about going and working with or talking to like a mentor or somebody who can be like, you know, teaching you or training you. I think about Mercury conjunct Saturn and Saturn's connection to your 9th house. So it can talk about getting some kind of training or certification, or having to meet with somebody who's giving you some insight into how to kind of better navigate either a career situation or a situation at home. And it can be with parents, particularly the moon. The full moon in the 4th house can deal with like motherhood, you know, responsibility with the mother, that kind of stuff. So watch for that. Good luck. We have Cancer and Cancer rising. You're going to be doing this full moon in Virgo in your natal 3rd house. And obviously Cancer, you're much more sensitive to full moons, so pay attention. The full moon is going to be in Virgo in your 3rd house. It sextiles your ascendant, so it works kind of nicely with that. And it's going to be in opposition to Mercury, Sun, and Saturn in your 9th. So the 3rd and the 9th houses are like education, learning. It does deal with like short distance and long distance travel. It does deal with what you're learning and what you're believing in. And so you're going in and out of that particular axis. For you, the 3rd house is about communication, short distance trips, learning, or siblings. And mental processes might be highlighted along with communication. You might find yourself engaging in practical discussions with siblings, neighbors, or focused on refining your communication skills. Now, in particular, this can be an indication of a change with a vehicle, a move, a document, or a paperwork situation, like having to sign a car lease or a home lease, or you know, having to find a specific document, especially relating to travel, because you've got Mercury as the ruler in the 9th house. Maybe you have to get a new ID. Maybe you have to, you know, get a new passport. Maybe you're having to sign some legal documents. Maybe it's a time with the Sun and Saturn that you are establishing a relationship with somebody at a distance or further away. Maybe you're going back to school, so you're having to, you know, really focus your discipline and your time on, you know, getting a certain certification. So that can be coming up as well. But all of these things kind of seem to apply. You know, I think what's nice is that the energies in Pisces, they do trine your ascendant, and Virgo sextile, so it can be a little bit easier for you. And that Jupiter trine your moon tells me like okay, if you have a vehicle issue, or if you have to move, or if there is some kind of like, you know, communication challenge, you may have a friend that's there to help you, who's gonna like help you through this process, who you can call on for support, or who may be able to give you some kind of guidance. So it does seem like it's not as critical. But for some of you, it could definitely be vehicle changes or movement that is possible. Let's see. The card that I get is the Page of Swords. So messages, emails, documents, paperwork, conversations with air signs like Geminis, Libras, or Aquariuses can come up here as well. This is about learning something new. So it's interesting that the full moon's in your third house about learning and communication, and it can be like that there is swift, contact coming from someone, a message from someone that's saying, hey, I'm coming to visit, or, come and visit me, or I'm gonna be in your area, let's get together, particularly connecting to air signs. And what I like about pages is that they start something new. So if you're like, I want to learn about launching a website, or, I have an interest in, being able to take up a new subject. Pages can be about curious energy that's leading you to trying something new that you've never tried before, especially with learning or anything involving information or communication. Good luck. Great for the third house too, by the way. I really like that. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You'll be doing this full moon in Virgo in your natal second house. And obviously this is your money house, Leo, so it does deal with money, resources, your spending power, your self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, how solid you can feel about yourself. So the second house is about personal finances. So practical concerns regarding finances and material possessions may come to the forefront. You can be focused on budgeting or financial planning, reevaluating your values relating to money and possessions. So these seem to be major focal points. And the second house is your resources, eighth house is other people's. So whether this is like a spouse's income, debt that's owed, an insurance matter that you're waiting to kind of have go through, money that you owe somebody else, like the eighth house is kind of like this karmic entanglement that you have with other people's things. So for the sun to be coming into conjunction with Saturn right around the time of this particular full moon, there can be a sense of like having to give something back to someone, having to pay for something, having to pay a debt. Somebody says like, okay, Sun, Saturn, this is mine, or this is what I need from you. So the full moon can actually result in like a payment being made. Maybe you anticipate, that something is coming. So, funds are coming to you at the full moon, and then you're kind of paying something off or giving something back a couple days after that particular full moon. Saturn being other people and Mercury being like actual funds and resources, there can be like settling up with someone. So if you guys have, like, let's say, you and a friend agreed you're going to go somewhere and you booked a trip and they're like, okay, cool, we're getting ready to go. You have to pay them prior to going on that trip. You may see something like that come up here. I do feel like the Cazimi is really significant because it can be about markers of change. Sun rules your chart. So it can be that you're becoming aware that there is about to be a dramatic change with a partner's resources, or maybe you get a document saying that you owe the balance on an insurance matter, or somebody is disputing a claim, with you. And so you're having to go back and forth about, wait a second, where is the proof? Where's the fine print? Let's read the notes. Like, did I already pay this? And it's saying that it's due. So it might require a little bit of research or a little digging on your part to ensure that you really get clarity on that matter. But I definitely feel like, budgeting, financial planning, and reevaluating your values relating to money and possessions is a huge theme. The positive is that a full moon in the second house generally is like a money, moon. It's like, okay, something comes in. And with this in a trine to Jupiter, it can be about expansion that's coming through your career. So it's possible that, if you're somebody who's a business owner, or, if you're wanting to expand your business or go into business with someone else, it might be like, look, in order to make more money, I have to invest back into my business. So it might mean that, you're taking out business loans. It might mean that you're dealing with an investor, somebody who can help bring the necessary resources to help expand the business in, seems to be the theme. So a lot of working with another person in regards to joint finances, not just your own. The card that I get for you is the Nine of Swords, which is a card that can be about stress or anxiety about a situation. Losing sleep over something, something I'll tell you about this card is like you can't worry about things that you have no control over. Okay, so when this card comes up, it's like, yeah, you can be feeling like you're really kind of beating yourself up, worried about a financial situation that you have no control over. All you can really do is just kind of say, okay, I'm waiting until I get that call, or I have the, deciding moment where they're like in or they're out, or, if it doesn't go through, I find another way. But you're not going to do yourself any favors by stressing out about things that you can't control, especially financially. Very important. I know there's a ton of heavy hitting planets going through your relationship sector right now. So it can be a major turning point in relationships, but you can use this opportunity to be able to go deeper into union with another person, to be vulnerable and to learn how to build physically and emotionally together. Good luck, Leo. Virgo and Virgo rising, we're looking at you. This full moon will be in your sign, in your natal first house, in opposition to Mercury and Saturn in your 7th house of relationships. Oh, my Virgos. So for you, a full moon in your first house is definitely some kind of personal completion. So you're going to want to look back at 6 months ago in like the end of summer, early fall, when we had a new moon in Virgo. This is that fulfillment of those intentions that you were setting for yourself. Now, the first house is about feeling a strong need to organize and refine your sense of self. This can be a time of self-improvement and attention to personal health and well-being. Obviously, the ruler is Mercury, and Mercury will be found in your 7th house in the house of relationships, where it's very close to Saturn, which rules true love, commitment, dating, creativity, children, and also the sun, which can be about self-undoing. I kind of feel like this is a bit of like a testing ground in certain relationships, where it might be about redefining who you are outside of relationship with other people. Obviously, there's still that Sun Saturn in the 7th house. So there's communication with other people, but also maybe this feeling that certain people who haven't been around maybe come back and check in with you. You might have like a message about somebody in a dream. This might be about going back and forth with a business relationship, with whether or not you're going to launch something, because the 7th house can be your marketplace. And also like getting more insight and introspection with another person. So it can be like getting a reading, talking to a therapist, talking to somebody who can help you manage something, especially like a creative process. But obviously, like all of this polarity in opposition to your moon in the first house, that full moon makes you very emotional and very sensitive. And so I do think that there can be a sense of feeling a little overwhelmed with the responsibilities and the conversations going on with other people, and whether or not you feel like you need to distance yourself from that. In theory, wherever Mercury goes is where you are. So you're going to see, even as Mercury continues forward after the full moon, it'll hit Saturn and then it'll hit Neptune. So you'll have to decide whether or not you want to continue moving forward with somebody who is evasive, not sure, kind of ghosty, may not communicate well, or they might be kind of like in victim land, and you might be kind of feeling like, hey, this is too much for me. This is overwhelming for me to keep going back and forth with someone. Now, the positive is that this moon does trine Jupiter. So it's saying travel, education, positivity, a positive mindset, learning something new. These are all the ways out. Maybe this is about a distance. Some Virgos may be feeling like, they're coming out of a relationship and they're longing for like the next one. Or they're, still in a relationship and longing for separation, because oppositions can be separation. So it depends on where you are, in that spectrum. Definitely long distance relationships may fare better with this particular full moon, because the opposition can bring you guys together. But I would watch for really significant communication with partners and kind of like this defining moment as to whether or not you really want to be with somebody or if you want to let them go. That can be a huge theme with some of these transits. Let's take a look. The card that I get is the Judgment card, which is more or less kind of like, the defining moment. For me, Judgment is kind of like whatever is happening right now is happening because it's like the final line, right? And that makes sense with Saturn. You know, in traditional astrology, it was seen as like the end. It's almost like, you know, Pluto in modern astrology. Have you reached a point where you're like, okay, it's now or never, where you're either taking the jump and you're committing more seriously to someone or to a business partnership or something, you know, and having to get really clear about, you know, what it is that you want. I mean, Saturn is true love. It's also children. So if you're in a committed relationship, it could be like, you know, we are now talking about moving in together or getting married or, you know, having kids. These conversations can come up and it can have you feeling very emotional and very overwhelmed. But I really feel like the aspects of the sextile to Jupiter and Uranus can be exciting new beginnings in relationships if you're open to it, right? Anyway, Judgment card is saying now or never. Good luck, Virgo. Report back to us and let us know what happens. We have got Libra and Libra rising. You'll be doing this full moon in Virgo in your natal 12th house, Libra. And it is ruled by Mercury, which is in your 6th house. So you're already used to kind of doing the inverted chart. So this might be a little bit easier for you than most of the other signs. So you are used to having Pisces in your 6th house and Virgo in your 12th. So you know about that mind-body balance. Here's how I see this. For you, you know, the 12th house is about spirituality and solitude. And, you know, this configuration may prompt you to bring practicality and discipline into your spiritual practices and inner journey. So you may be more focused on establishing practical routines for meditation, self-reflection, spiritual growth, as well as addressing any subconscious patterns that are holding you back. Now, Mercury is the ruler of this full moon, and it's in the 6th house of health habits, pets, routine, office space, things in regards to your physical health, and it will come into conjunction with the Sun and Saturn. So a little bit of organization and better time management might be your best friend, right? Like quite literally. Where the full moon in the 12th house is like, okay, you know, this is a full moon where, you know, some of the bad habits might creep up. You might notice that you're having trouble sleeping. There can be a sense of feeling kind of like uneasy because full moons in the 12th house do kind of bring out the subconscious side. But this is also where there is a clearing going on, right? After this, the next full moon will be in your sign, Libra. So this is like a subconscious kind of purge, and that purge that's happening subconsciously can have a huge impact in your physical health habits and routine. You've got a loaded 6th house here. So that's telling me that like you do need to be doing your due diligence to make sure that you're practicing time management, taking care of mental health, taking time for rest and recuperation, making sure that you're getting the necessary assistance that you need, and you're really taking care of business emotionally and quite literally. Also, it's like you got Mars and Venus in your 5th house. So some of you guys are just going to be kind of partying a little bit more than usual, you know, going out a little bit more than usual. And maybe it may be this awareness that's like, man, you know, like I'm not used to going out several days in a row, or I don't really drink like this, or something like that can happen, which leads to an awareness where you're going to go, okay, it's time for me to deal with my bad habits and maybe find a better way to manage anxiety or stress and keep a better balanced routine. I think that's really what this is going to be about for you, Libra. So let's take a look. Let's see what the cards say. Obviously, a full moon in your 12th house. Get into your quiet space. Give yourself some time to rest and recuperate. The card that I get for you is the 5 of Coins. So this is about feeling left out in the cold. This is about feeling like you don't have enough, that you need support. The 12th house is where we get that support, and whether it's from, you know, our spiritual communities, our spirit guides, it can be, you know, where guardian angels kind of step in, and there are miraculous healings and people who are very generous, who are willing to kind of help if you're willing to ask for it. My recommendation in Libra is if you're willing to ask for help, ask for help. You know, I don't know if this is help with a health issue, if it's a job issue. You know, the 5 of Coins can be talking about feeling like things are very tight financially, or that you're in a position where you don't have anybody else that you can turn to, and you're kind of like throwing your hands up, being like, okay, I'm leaving this to the universe, and people will show up, they can help. But the 6th house is the support. So I don't know what support you need, if it's with your habits, organization, you know, physical help, but this can also be about, you know, help from coworkers and some pesky issues that you can be having with pets. But you need to be focused on asking for assistance, so that way you're not kind of like isolating yourself with this full moon in the 12th house and not telling people what's going on, right? So ask for some assistance from your spirit team, because likely you'll see that physical people arrive. Good luck, Libra. We have Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You're going to be doing this full moon in Virgo in your natal 11th house. All right, Scorpio, well, Virgo naturally sextiles you, so you've got that working in your favor. A full moon in the 11th house is bringing all of your attention to your community, your goals, your friends. There can be lots of stuff going on socially, lots of kind of opportunities for get-togethers and that kind of stuff. And your focus may turn towards practical goals and aspirations within your social circles and community. You can be working on practical strategies for achieving your long-term goals and making progress within your social networks. Now, the ruler is Mercury, and it's in your 5th house. So for me, I think about Sun, Saturn, Mercury. If you own your own business, if you're in the creative field, if you're a performer, if you're an artist, anything like that, it's a really good time to make sure that you're really focusing on building something and creating something that's authentic, it's yours, and kind of joining networks and groups and associations where you can show other people what you've got. Whether it's taking your art to a local gallery with other artists, or deciding that you're like, you know what, I have a kid and I want to make other friends with people who have kids, so I'm going to go and join, parenting groups, or I'm going to go and try to meet other parents that are kind of on my wavelength, because the 11th house does represent friends and community, and you have all of this energy in the 5th house. So it's got to be a group of people or an organization or friends that want to celebrate you. They want to celebrate what you bring to the table, or they want to see what you're able to create. I am curious about the Sun, Saturn, Mercury conjunction for you. Obviously, the 5th house is not just about creative energies, it's self-love, it's self-expression. It can also be about romance, and it can be about, coming to terms with what you love about yourself. Also, major transformations of the inner child and the heart space, and big themes revolving around children. If you have children, it can be big responsibilities and turning points for your kids. If you don't, and if you're in a relationship, especially with these planets sextiling the 7th house, there can be big decisions made about children, which can have really big implications in, the growth of your relationship. And Mercury is connected to joint resources, and Saturn represents the home. So it looks like there's going to be like a kind of serious conversation with somebody that you love about vulnerability and supporting one another and making some of these potential future growths and relationships very possible. So be interesting to see how that plays out for you, Scorpio. Certainly big stuff's changing on the home front with Mars, Pluto, and Venus in your 4th house. And so it can mean that it's, that your home is changing, that some change is going on with your family. The card that I get is the 3 of Wands. Travel, excitement, announcements, playtime. I really feel like the 5th house can also be about vacations, traveling. So there is some sense of being okay, I'm going and doing this stuff, and this is something that makes me happy, and protecting that. It's not just about making your plans, it's actually going there. So it's not just about figuring out, okay, well, what kind of groups or networks, can I kind of connect to? It's being no, I'm actually actively doing it. Holding yourself accountable for going and doing those things, and connecting with other people so you can really let your talent shine. I think it's also going to be about actually, planning stuff and going places with people. The moon represents your 9th house. So you might be anticipating traveling, or just coming back from traveling right around the time of this full moon. That's very possible. Good luck, Scorpio. We have Sag and Sag rising. You will be doing this full moon in your natal 10th house, Sagittarius. And you are the meat of the full moon square. So if you have any Sag placements, 4, 5, 6 degrees, you're going to feel the crunch. And you'll be the focal point, and the focus is going to be growth, right? Because Sagittarius is about growth, expansion, knowledge, learning. So the full moon's in your 10th house, okay? So the energy is going to revolve around action in your career, big, completions in regards to your public image, your professional life. Career goals and public responsibilities probably will be taking center stage in your life. And you're going to be focused on practical strategies for advancing your career and enhancing your public image through disciplined effort and organization. So why do I say that? Well, I mean, discipline, organization, these are all kind of Virgo things, but the ruler is Mercury and it's in the 4th house. Emotional discipline, dedication, commitment, groundedness, focus on your home, your family, that kind of stuff. Obviously, this can be a really heavy energy for Sagittarius, having so many planets in the 4th house. It's not just your home or your roommates, your family, it's the past. So learning to overcome past home or emotional issues, or maybe where you have felt lost or questioning something about your ancestry or relationships with parents, these things can come up. Obviously, a full moon in the 10th house brings your attention to big completions in regards to your career and your status, but Sun, Mercury, and Saturn paints a different picture where there can be some serious things going, like moving, relocating, taking care of elderly relatives, needing to take care of something involving a sibling as well, because Saturn's connection here, and more kind of responsibility with home and family. The positive is that this particular full moon is going to trine Jupiter in your career, I guess your daily routine sector. So it's like, let's say, touch wood, with Sun, Mercury, and Saturn, there is a difficult home or family situation. You've got something going on where you have to take care of a relative. Moon trine Jupiter is kind of saying, like, it is possible you've got a friend that's going to cover your shift, or somebody who's like, hey, I got you. How can I help? Definitely a lot of recognition for a job well done. So if you've been really working hard in regards to your professional life and your reputation, you're going to see that there is going to be some expansion because of the hard work you've put in with Jupiter in your 6th house. But also Jupiter in the 6th says there could be too much work, right? There could be too much expansion. There could be, too many things kind of going on with changes in your routine. And the trine to your 10th house can indicate, okay, we'll take care of it, but it's kind of eating into my home time or my family time, or it's requiring me, to spend less time away from family. And is that actually good for my private life, my home, or my family, right? And what am I neglecting or sacrificing emotionally or on the home front? So that's something I think about. I know so many of you guys are either moving or contemplating moving. I could see that with energies in the 3rd and the 4th, and also just a lot changing with relationships to a sibling and or a family member, and how that's impacting you emotionally. So you may feel like it's just a lot even showing up and kind of being at work right now, that you would much rather probably be at home. But yeah, watch for advancing your career and also your public image, because I think it can be a big opportunity for that. And it might be something, I guess the positive is, sharing that with your family, with Mercury being in the 4th house. You might make a big public announcement that is about how there's changes going on with your family and how that's impacting your work. And Mercury rules relationships. So it might be something you're having to tell clients, hey, I've got something going on. I'm experiencing, a lot of changes to my schedule. I hope you guys understand. So if you run a business, or if you're in a client-based business, put the word out, let people know, and people are likely to be supportive and kind of working with you and helpful as you're navigating any changes. The card that I got for you is the King of Pentacles, which honestly is great. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. This is about being a boss, okay? So you have a full moon in your 10th house and you got this card. Really managing work in a very successful way, calling the shots, showing up, and really reaping all of the rewards of being responsible and hardworking and dedicated. So I feel like this is really going to pay off for you in the long run. But nevertheless, definitely a lot of work. But that's a pretty good card for you, Sag. So let me know how that goes. Good luck. We have Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You'll be doing this full moon in Virgo in your natal 9th house. And so this is going to be in a fellow sister earth sign. So if you have anything around 4, 5, 6 degrees of Capricorn, this will be trining that for you. And you will be a part of a yummy earth trine between Jupiter and the moon. So that's really lovely for you, Capricorn. All right, so a full moon in the 9th house ruled by Mercury. Mercury is in the 3rd where it's actually happy, honestly. It's about documents, communication, cars, traveling, signing things. Pay special attention to the like the 24th through the 28th. Because remember how I was talking about how the Sun, Mercury, and Saturn will come into conjunction? That's really important for you because you're a Saturn ruled chart. So likely it's going to be an important kind of document that you have to sign, or, you know, fixing a vehicle, or becoming aware of something that, you know, you need to talk about, or you need to kind of like work out. Could it mean that you need to talk to a lawyer? Could it mean that you have to, you know, get a documentation of some kind, or a certification of some kind? Maybe. Could it be a travel document that you need to prepare? Maybe. But yeah, the third and the ninth house deal with education and beliefs, or short distance and long distance travel generally. For you, this is about practical considerations regarding higher education, travel, and philosophical beliefs. And you could be focused on practical goals relating to expanding your knowledge or planning your educational or travel ventures. So it's a lot of like, this is where I want to go. Okay, well, I have to buy the ticket first, or I have to, you know, kind of learn the language to get around in another place. Pisces can be foreign. And what I like is that Pisces is sextiling your ascendant, and the moon should be trining your sun, moon, or rising. So this is a much friendlier energy. But I feel like with the Sun and Mercury coming into conjunction with Saturn, it's going to be about having conversations either with a neighbor or a sibling, or something that's coming up where they're kind of saying like, I'm stuck, I need help, you know, or they're coming to your rescue, or they're trying to kind of support you in some way. That's another way to look at it. I always say with the third and the ninth house, like, try to keep an open mind, you know, where the third house Pisces is very intuitive. It may mean that you're listening to videos, or, you know, reading things that can be about divination, spirituality, what have you, which leads you down a path of being like, wow, that's really amazing. Like, I want to learn more about this seriously. I want to study it seriously. But you'd have to learn a little bit more about something, or listen to some stuff, or watch some videos before you decide to like really dive in and do a program, right? Just food for thought on that. Keep an open mind, especially when you notice with this full moon that there's like a lot of like, you know, philosophical debates about beliefs. You might learn something. The card they get for you is the Seven of Wands, which is about kind of standing your ground, which I think is very true. Because Mercury and Saturn coming into conjunction is about standing your ground and not backing down from a verbal perspective, from a mental perspective, not letting somebody, you know, kind of take advantage of something. Standing up or speaking for yourself seems to be a huge focus. And, you know, Seven of Wands is about staying on top and like not letting other people kind of knock you down. So it can represent where, you know, maybe you feel like you have had like a, you know, meeting of the minds with somebody, and somebody's telling you don't know something. You're going to be like, I've got the receipts, you know, or like I have the proof. And kind of challenging other people's kind of beliefs or opinions. So watch for that, Capricorn. Good luck. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You will be doing this full moon in Virgo in your natal 8th house. And it'll be in opposition to Mercury, which is conjunct the Sun, and Saturn, which is one of your chart rulers, in the 2nd house of money. All right, so a full moon in the 8th house. This is really putting emphasis on transformation and shared resources. So issues relating to shared resources and deep transformation is likely to arise. You may be focused on practical strategies for managing shared finances or addressing issues relating to intimacy or trust. Well, the 8th house is change and transformation. It is your relationship to other people's resources. It is about intimacy, sex, things that are a little bit more scandalous or taboo or private. And at the time of the full moon, you have got Mercury and the Sun in your 2nd conjunct Saturn. So it might mean that, you know, if you applied for a loan or a credit card, something comes through and it gives you the power and the authority to have more, right? Maybe. It can mean that, you know, some kind of bill or some kind of payment, or somebody reaches out to you and says like, hey, you know, like, I need that money I lent you back. And Mercury being in its fall in the 2nd house requires you to say, okay, I've got to pay it forward. But I think it's more than just money. I think it's going to be more about your belief or your philosophy about yourself, your self-esteem, what you believe about your own resources or your own capabilities. The sun does rule relationships and Mercury rules transformation. So I think it can be about you going back and forth. Do I let something go? Do I let a person go, a relationship go? Do I let a relationship with a physical thing or a material good go? What can I sacrifice? What can I do without? What can I get rid of? And I think it might be like actual things. It can be items that are associated with another person as well. Certainly the second house is financial though. I mean, it is about what you have access to, what you can spend and what you possess. But generally a full moon in the 8th is going to bring a conclusion in regards to somebody else's resources, and it can indicate like a win for you. So can it mean that, somebody else made a bad bet and you get paid? Sure. But it can also be that there's an insurance, claim that gets closed, or, you're issued a refund and then you get your taxes back, and then you get it with Sun, Mercury, Saturn, and you're like, man, I didn't get as much as I thought I would. There is some Saturn aspect that's like, okay, or I need to change who did my taxes, or, I'm not totally wild about, what I put into a situation. I don't really like the outcome, financially speaking. So there is a sense of being more realistic about your budget, about your spending, about your relationship with money in general. And I would say what you're willing to release or give up ultimately is requiring you to be more self-sufficient, independent, or kind of, financially more self-reliant. So what are you willing to give up in order to kind of be more focused on yourself, I guess? Certainly like Pluto, in your sign with Mars and Venus, there's been a lot of like, okay, I want to step away from old ways of living, or, old jobs. And maybe you're saying it's worth the sacrifice. It's worth the sacrifice. The 8 of Wands is the card that I get for you, which is about sudden movement, quick changes, things happening very fast. This is a card that's more associated with Mars. And so even though Mars has nothing to do with this, Mars does slightly in conjunct the moon. So it's going to be about how you react to potential, life-changing circumstances. Do you jump into, getting involved and kind of work through the crisis? Do you decide to get angry and get upset? Do you fight it if someone or something is done? That's what I would look at. But the energies seem to indicate that things are rapidly changing very quickly. So if you're anticipating some kind of financial matter coming to a head, it'll happen very quickly. If you are wondering how long it's going to take for you to get paid, it'll happen very quickly. If you're struggling in a financial, situation, will it last very long? You'll move through it very quickly. It's not going to be something that's going to last for forever. Good luck, Aquarius. Keep us all updated. And then finally, we have Pisces and Pisces rising. You will be doing this full moon in Virgo in your natal 7th house. Obviously, it is all about relationships in the 7th house. And the opposition will be to all of these planets in Pisces in your 1st. So kind of interesting that Mercury rules relationships and the moon, and it's in your 1st house. So can it be about the relationship to yourself and how you speak to yourself? Yes. Can it be about whether or not you feel instinctually like you want to reach out to somebody to get support, go out to dinner, work together, be a client, be a friend? Yeah, I think it's going to be about instinctually knowing who or what to reach out to. I do think that whenever you have a full moon that's in the 7th house, we see big themes happening revolving around relationships, partnerships. So, they may be subject to practical assessment. Maybe you're reevaluating where you're at in a relationship, where things stand, if there's a need to make changes, or if you're changing your mind about a particular person. You may find that you're evaluating the practicalities of your partnerships and seeking to establish a more structured approach to cooperation and collaboration. So if you're single, it can be, hey, I'm looking to meet somebody. I'm feeling more inclined to just walk up and talk to somebody or kind of socialize. If you're partnered, it might mean that, you're kind of feeling like, you need somebody as a sounding board now, more so than usual. Maybe you're needing to kind of voice, areas of concerns in a relationship, or maybe you're, really talking about your own needs and how you're taking more of a stand for yourself and focusing more on your own needs and speaking up, the impact that that has in relationships. Getting a reading, working with an astrologer or a therapist or a counselor in this particular situation, both for You know, I would say for, you know, Pisces as well as Aries, I think is really great. Virgo too. I mean, all of you guys will really benefit from having like another person who can give you feedback. But because partners are ruled by Mercury and you've got Mercury conjunct the Sun and Saturn, it's a lot of like, okay, you know, I'm having an issue in this department with relationships to other people. Like I need somebody's opinion to kind of help, you know, give you more insight in how to better relate to other people. I also think that, you know, that conjunction of Mercury, Sun, and Saturn kind of coming up is going to be a pretty significant one, because it can be a defining moment where you're becoming very sure of what you're committing to, what your goals are, whether or not you're ready to really kind of take a step back maybe from a relationship. If you're saying, you know what, I'm finally like letting this go and moving forward. So that may also come from this full moon. It doesn't have to happen the day of the full moon. It may happen a couple days later when Mercury and Saturn sit in conjunction in your first, and you might say to somebody, you know what, I can't do it, or I'm not ready, or I'm not ready to talk, or, you know, this isn't where I want it to be. And the fact that that's sextiling Jupiter in your third house is saying that you're tapping into something, whether you text it, you say it, you write it, that you know that you need to say for more security, for more stability, to feel like you have stronger kind of boundaries with other people, because it's like self-preservation. You know what I'm saying? So let's see what these cards say for you, Pisces. I get the Page of Pentacles. Okay, so this can be about Capricorns, Virgos, Tauruses, but in particular, I think this is about realizing your worth. You know, pages are new beginnings, kind of like aces. They're learning how to do something. So you're learning how to value yourself, put yourself first, focus on what's best for you. Can it be messages that are coming in about physical changes in relationships, financial changes in relationships? Sure. But usually this represents like a brand new energy that's fresh to you. And I think it's where you're kind of realizing like, I have to really focus on myself, my needs, my health, my body. What kind of an impact are other people having on my ability to feel solid? If it's not feeling good, then I need to be reinvesting energy into myself, and also really focusing on my health, because my health is my wealth, right? That's what pages can kind of teach us. It's not just about money. It can be about health stuff as well. So I'm especially interested to hear, yeah, like I think like you and Virgo are kind of like the signs that are really gonna get triggered from this, obviously, because oppositions can represent having two different perspectives, or being far away, or like taking space. But I'd love to hear from you guys and hear how that's impacting you, and hopefully that message was helpful for you. But that's my interpretation of the full moon in Virgo for all of you guys. I hope it was helpful in giving you some insight into what to expect. Maybe I'll put together another video on that triple conjunction. We'll see as we get closer to the full moon. But let me know, how do you guys feel about these energies? Did you also see that triple conjunction coming? What do you guys think about the merry-go-round? I, for one, am ready to get off of it with some of my habits, and I have definitely been noticing like this acceleration of having so much deja vu. So watch for those synchronicities, those connections, those small kind of messages from the cosmos during this particular full moon. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and let me know how this plays out for you guys. Until next time, I will see all of you very soon. Enjoy your full moon. Take care.